determined there's a quorum, so let's begin. The first Committee for Student Learning and Student Development, Penny Forrest.
Yourself. Chancellor's comments.
Do you have any comment?
Have a nice new microphone
You
there.
Let me put it this way, I assume you have no comments.
For the sake of parsimony, I could have no comments if you want, but I got all mic'd up so I could show you some stuff. It won't take long.
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
I'm sorry.
no problem. We're in the legislative session, and the action has begun. And y'all, although we don't ask you to play a really active role in terms of running to Austin and advocating on a regular basis, there is no doubt as community leaders you could be talked to by legislators. For that reason, I'm going to show you literally a presentation that we are using now. We used this yesterday with Senate Finance. And what I'll show you is the package is far bigger than I'm going to show you. There was a narrative, which we will send you electronically, because we know you don't want to have all of that. And then there was a bunch of attachments, which we will also send you. What I'm going to show you are the presentation slides, because they kind of capture the core thread of our message. And so the first thing we do is there are a lot of members in both Senate Finance, Senate Higher Ed, House Appropriations, and House Higher Ed that are going to be brand new to those committees. And for that reason, they don't know a whole lot about, some of the members don't know a whole lot about TSTC. So we usually start with a primer, and one of my favorites is this year we turned 50 years old. That makes us older than most two-year colleges in Texas. And that final fact surprises most people. There's only a handful of Texas two-year colleges that are older than we are. Just a handful. So we were here first. That's at the heart of what I'm saying. I remind them of what our high-demand, high-tech mission is and how the legislature put it to us. We do associates and certs. We're accredited by the same people that accredit A&M and UT, and we have 180 pathways, which goes to scale, 180 pathways. A community college is lucky if they have 6. I mean, unless you're a big, giant metro college. Then I talk about our legislatively mandated mission and the fact that it's unique. I drive home this. We are unique. We're unlike anybody else, and there's a lot of things that make us that way. It begins with this. Our primary purpose, according to the legislature, is economic development. Our means is workforce training. That makes us different than all the other two-year schools. That narrow mission is why we're so powerful. And then I talk also about the fact, by the way, we have 11 campuses. That is another unique feature. You won't find any other two-year school that has the regional breadth that we do. And what? Okay, thought I saw a typo. We have to remind new members, we are not a community college. We don't have a local tax base. We teach more technical hours than any other two-year school in Texas. We consistently win more Skills USA Intercollegiate Technical Awards than the rest of the two-year sector put together. We are bigger than the rest put together in terms of our intercollegiate competition. We're consistently ranked in the top 3. Sometimes we're number 2, sometimes we're number 1, sometimes we're number 3 in engineering-related AAS degrees nationwide, and then we talk about the return value formula. I drive home, there are 3 primary benefits to the return value formula. One of them is it has made Texas famous for its innovation. And then I show them this. Here's just a few of the national conferences that TSTC has been invited to present to. These aren't us out trying. These are them calling us saying, wow, you guys are amazing. Will you come show us what you're doing? And it starts with the National Governors Association. So we show them that. Legislators like to know that their state is considered a leader. And so we show them all of those. Then I say a second benefit is that this formula works. It makes the company focus on student success, and you've seen this chart before. You know, these are the latest data out of the board, the coordinating board. that says that the number of credentials we have issued over this 4-year period has grown by 32%. And I've also shown you this slide where those aggregate salaries that are being earned by those people have gone up 60%. So what that means is while we're growing the number of grads, the jobs they're getting are better and better. And so now these happen to be, this one and this one, the two main variables of the funding formula. So in the years ahead, as the funding formula catches up to this point in time, we have some really nice ski slope indicators in our funding formula. Then I go into the funding formula itself. I usually skip over this slide because it's more detailed than the legislator wants to read, but they have it there available in their resources. And then I skip straight to this and I say, you know, the old formula was really simple. Number of contact hours times the rate per hour, that equals your funding. Well, the new one is actually just as simple. The number of students, TSTC students, that have gone into the workplace times the economic benefit of their salary. It really boils down to just that. Or what we like to call the golden metrics. Placements times salary. It boils down to that simple. And the reason why we want to boil it down is legislators like it simple. If you can get it, you know, give me the core. And then the other is internally, our team knows the two most important things they can focus on are placements and salaries. Then we go into the final major benefit of actually there are dozens, but the main benefit is operational room to innovate. When you're paid on seat time, you must worship at the altar of seat time. And it doesn't leave you a lot of room to try innovative new ways of doing education, because what you have to do is seat time. So that's why, that's why we, for example, have become the first college in Texas to get SACS approval, that's our accreditation group, SACS approval for our competency-based learning. We're the only college in Texas to get Federal Department of Education approval to offer federal financial aid to our competency-based learning students. The only college in Texas with that designation. And we can only find 3 other colleges in America that have that designation. That impresses legislators. Dual credit pathways, we've developed 12 of them that align perfectly with HB 5, and I will tell you the legislature is smitten with the work they did in HB 5, and appropriately so. It is changing the way that students are seeing their way forward. They have options they never had before, and one of those big options goes right through the middle of our sweet spot, TSTC. And so we took the lead in producing a lot of dual credit that actually produces a marketable skills award. They get that award when they get their diploma. And we have more under development. And then rapid programmatic changes. Since our last board meeting, we put the finishing touches on a curriculum combining that took our pathways from over 310 pathways to the 180 that I showed you. And we have phased out only 6 programs. Actually, what we did is we shelved them. We didn't phase them out because you don't want to go back through the reapproval process if you ever want to reactivate. So we just deactivate. But we only deactivated 6 programs. That's how much redundancy we had in our system across the state. Degree programs that were really, really similar but had enough differences that they had to be called different things and they had to have a whole different place in the book and they had so forth. So we went from over 310 to 180. Elton Stuckley's team, I bet Elton he would never get it done that fast, and he proved me wrong. He has a great team doing that. Okay, we talk about rapid changes. Micro-credentials, we talked to you some about that. We usually have to explain to legislators what those are all about, but that has to do with getting people into the workplace in great paying jobs fast and cheap. They're lucrative for us, but they're fast and cheap for the student. That'll drive our enrollment up in the future as much as just about any product line we offer going forward. Early college high schools, how we're doing that in a way that's different than everybody else. Ours are all technical. That's groundbreaking. And no one else does it because no one else has the expertise to be able to feel it like we do. And then I talk about the cool part about this formula is everybody's best interests align. The students' best interests are exactly the same as ours, which are exactly the same as the state. So we talk about this. By the way, I don't go through every point with every legislator. I have an idea of what's important to them, and so it doesn't take as long as it's taken here. Then we talk about the skills gap. I've run you guys through this before. Here's our skills gap right here. This is the sweet spot of what TSTC teaches to. These are baccalaureates. These are high school grads. These are the technical workers. And I usually talk about Eastman Chemical, who tells me 40% of their skilled workforce is eligible for retirement. I hear similar stories out of other industrial employers. The plumbers union, or the plumbers association, not the union, tells me the average age of a plumber in Texas is 57. And by the way, good news on the plumber section. They're changing the law so that the teaching we do has double credit in their systems. So we should have a big pulse in demand for plumbers. Here's the supply gap. I've shown you this before. Gen Ed is going off the charts. Meanwhile, technical and allied health are perfectly flat in Texas. This will make the skills gap worse in the years to come, not better. And this is where I say to them, you've got to make technical ed a strategic priority, or this skills gap problem is going to get worse. Good news, they all hear it. They're listening. They're responding. So that's it. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road. This is the final slide. You can applaud. These are our 4 asks. This first one is our formula funding. We start with, our formula funding has been going down for 8 years. It's been trending down. And we need that reversed. That is probably resonates with them more than anything else. We didn't know we were doing that to you. And then I point out, we got some situations. I mean, some of our labs are a bit long in tooth. We haven't been able to give the raises we want to give. You've got to get this turned around, and it's really resonating with the legislators. The next is our transition funding. Because the lag in our funding formula, new locations have to have a special line item for working capital. They understand that. In this ask, we have 2 new line items. Abilene, where we want to build the Industrial Training Center, and Fort Bend, where the campus is going in there. And so the existing line items are Hutto and Red Oak. And so those have rolled in both bills, one better than the other. Tuition revenue bonds, that'll be an all or nothing sort of thing. Either the legislature will do them or they won't. It's possible we might get asked to prioritize these. I don't know yet. But that's this one hasn't moved yet. We don't know where that's going to be. And then finally, increased funding for C4EO. I think it was the last meeting I kind of took you through C4EO and what a groundbreaking one it is. This is the smallest item. It's only $1 million ask, or maybe $1.5 million. But I predict C4EO is not only going to make us a ton of money in the future, it'll be a revenue stream for us, but this is what will make us famous. Because we have developed an automated curriculum alignment system, web-based, that is so powerful and so groundbreaking, the state of Louisiana is currently negotiating with us to license the technology. And so, it has other applications too, with regards to automated reading of resumes, job matching, and curriculum development. So it's got some really great stuff in there. And we're working with a law firm right now to tighten up all of our intellectual property rights to make sure that it stays with TSTC. For the time being, we're providing this to Texas colleges for free, meaning we provide it as a service, but we don't give them the technology. And we have over 20 colleges that have taken us up on that. That gets attention out of the legislature, is that we're helping others in technical ed. And so those are our big asks. Finally, I think it's important that, because I've heard some rumors that people are concerned about where we are. It's early in the session. The base bills have been presented, and generally speaking, the base bill is your start point, and then you just grow your position from there. Most people agree the base bill is your worst possible scenario. Well, our base bills this time are within a few percent of our current budget. That is a delightful place to be at the beginning of the session, particularly if you compare it to last session where we started probably 18 to 20% down. And we had to work the entire session, essentially just pulled a miracle out to get us nearly level. In fact, we had folks like A&M and UT coming to us going, how did you move that far as a percent of base budget? We really, I think, did, and I'm not saying we, I'm saying the legislative team did an amazing job. If we could repeat that kind of performance in a session like this, where there is an awful lot of extra money compared to last time, then I mean, we couldn't be happier. Our initial ask, this one right here, is about a 14% increase. We already, as a management team, have prioritized what that increase would go to in terms of our operations. But it's too early to say we're going to get it, but it's not too early to say, man, do we have a good start point and a head of steam at this point in the session that we've never had before. Everywhere we go, we have legislators saying, oh man, you guys are great. We love you guys. You guys are great. It's way easier to get the money if you're starting at that point than it is, who are you again? So I have every reason to be optimistic, but it's way too early to declare victory. It ain't over till it's over. So that's the legislative thing. In the event that you ever have anyone who grabs you and says, what's going on, and you feel like you can't answer with some of the information that I've given you here, and then we'll also send you electronically, naturally call us. Call Roger, call me. If we have to come to district and sit down with someone and visit with them, we'd be happy to. Although chances are, your person we've already talked, for example, I've already talked to Susan King. And we spent some good quality time with Susan King. We haven't met Perry yet. Yeah. As a freshman, he'll have Susan will provide a better opportunity to move things forward, but we have Perry on our radar screen as part of our group. And so that's where we are legislatively, and then finally the next a big legislative event that you'll be part of is the April 22nd banquet down in Austin. Remember, that week we'll have our board meeting in Austin, but we'll also have April 22nd a big gala. We're selling tables to the gala. We're already up to somewhere around $130,000 or $140,000 in table sales, with a target of $200,000. So we're nearly there, and we have tables available. I think it was what range? 5, 10, and 25. Is that what it was? Yeah, $1,000 a table. And so we're getting a real good response out of that. And so you have, yeah, an individual ticket is $150. Yeah, y'all won't have to buy a ticket, but we'd love a donation if you want to make one. A final thing is your local legislators, like Senator Perry. an invitation from you is 10 times more powerful than an invitation from me. So, for example, their offices have already received information from us with things like save a date, invitation, their staff has been briefed. But if you were to talk to people like Chris Patty and Brian Hughes and Kevin Eltife, who, by the way, did an amazing job yesterday in Senate Finance for TSTC, that invitation means way more than just us inviting them. So we'll give you a list of who we suggest, or if you know others that you may want to put a bug in their ear. And it all has to be, as we sure hope you could show up to our gala on the 22nd. The more legislators there, the better. And of course, they don't have to pay for a ticket either. We'll let them in. So that's it. Any questions about? Did I go too long?
No, and I'm sorry. I thought you were going to do this at another time.
Oh, well, improvisation.
Mike, is there in this, maybe as a part of providing us lists of people we might contact to ask, could you give us also the members of the key committees?
Yes.
So as we circulate through Austin, we might run into people and say,
Yes.
oh, I know that guy's on
Yes.
higher ed.
Yes.
Okay.
Lillian is capturing that commitment, and so tomorrow I'll send you that. But first I have to, why don't you, if you can give me a week, I'll be able to send you a comprehensive list, because we actually don't know some of the committee structure yet. In particular, on the House side, we aren't sure yet exactly who's going to be on the Article 3 subcommittee, which is the committee that does the budget for higher ed. Well, we have our fingers crossed as to who we think might be the chairman, and if it's the guy that probably has the best chance of becoming chairman, we're really glad to have him. But if you could give us, say, a week, those are supposed to be announced by tomorrow, and then we'll be able to tell you everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, at this time, we'll recess to the committee meetings, and we'll begin with the Committee for Student Learning, Student Development, Penny Forrest.
Mr. Chairman, we'd like to invite Elton, Stuckley, and, are you coming up there?
Good morning, everyone. The only thing we have on the agenda this morning from this particular committee is the Board of Regents Honor Graduates for fall 2014. For the fall, we had a total of 47 awards across the state. There were 29 AAS degrees and 18 certificates, of which require a lot of hard work and effort to accomplish those particular feats. And the other thing on the agenda this morning is an update on single accreditation by Gail and myself. And she is the leader of this project, but she asked that I provide an update on the curriculum part of it, just to make sure everyone knows that we are on schedule for that. As the chancellor said, when we started looking at combining the curriculum, we had to set a date of Christmas, the Christmas holidays. And as he stated, there were 440 actually awards on the book. Some of them were dormant. There were 337 that were actually functional, and we got it down to exactly 184. And to say, as the chancellor said, we're very, very proud of the faculty and staff that participated on this, because some of you that have been on the board for a while know that probably 8 or 9 years ago we attempted that feat to get a common curriculum, but because we were not going single accreditation, it never occurred. The big key this time is the focus on single accreditation. Without it, again, I'm not sure anyone could have pulled that off. So I attribute that and everyone's hard work because everyone knew we had to do it, because we are focusing on single accreditation. So that's a must. The work, that's the easy part though. The hard part as now is assessing the programs. Now that we have them in place, program learning outcomes, student learning outcomes, we have to do professional development training for our faculty, because now that the programs are aligned, we have to have the same learning outcomes for all of the programs across the state. That will be led by Kyle Smith, who is with us today. He is already working on that. The deadline for that is the fall. We have to have it done by the fall so that when we flip the switch for single accreditation, we are ready. Why? Because SACS will be visiting us next January 2016, to see how we're doing. The criteria for SACS for the last 10 or 11 years, the big emphasis has been on how can you prove to me that students are learning? The learning outcomes are the way. And it all ties into the assessment process, so that as we move forward, not only will we have good assessment tools, but we can assess people coming off the street that have skills that may have worked in the field for years, but don't have to sit in the classroom hour after hour going through repetitive things that they already know, when we can assess them and give them credit and move forward with their careers. As the Chancellor also said, the last thing right now is the alignment of dual credit. You know, we are no longer offering onesies and twosies. That will be complete by this fall as well. I am happy to say that we're aligning everything across the state in that particular area. We will have common MOUs, common agreements. There may be a little flexibility, but with the pathways that we have set up and aligned, it will fit just about every high school in the state of Texas. And I'm also very pleased, we have many across the state, but we're fixing to sign an agreement with Fort Bend ISD to start with a couple of programs this fall. We got started late, but that high school has 78,000 students. And so the potential there to work with students and to work with Jeff Kilgore's team and marketing and recruiting as students get into these pathways, I think will be a big advantage to TSTC, not only in that area, but across the state as we continue to move in that direction.
I don't think we can underscore how important this Fort Bend ISD deal is. Fort Bend ISD by itself has 11 high schools and growing. That's an indication of the scale in some of these metro areas that are out there. And there's other large school districts in the region, as Joe knows, that we are also talking to. These opportunities are just massive.
I will tell you, we're being very strategic too in the selection, you know, depending on, as the Chancellor said, about the budget and everything, but we're being very strategic because some are a fit for us and some are not. If a high school calls and says, we want you to teach academics, or we want 2 or 3 classes in this, no thank you, that's not our mission. So we're being very, very protective of what we've set up, and for some it will work and for some it won't, but that's the way it should be. Thank you.
That's a really good segue. Because it's hard to believe that a year ago this time, the charge was made to us to look at how we're going to handle all this growth. And when we did the study and came out with the recommendation to pursue single accreditation, and here we are all these months later, and how much work has gone into this project. It's often been described as remodeling your house while you're living in it. Alice, do you know anything about that?
Linda, I hope you're listening to this.
He's doing it to us too.
But, and I really want to applaud Elton and his team, because getting that curriculum aligned is just a huge undertaking. And it's just an example of what we're doing across all the functions and all divisions at TSTC. Every division is aligning and coming together and sharing best practices and becoming more efficient. And we're leveraging off of that expertise that we have had in pockets at campuses. But I'm hearing even just last night about how some of the smaller colleges are already enjoying the benefits of that expertise that has been localized, say, in Harlingen or in Waco. And so I know that at the end, it's just going to be a great benefit across the state. On our timeline, the curriculum alignment was a huge undertaking. We're currently aligning our student handbook and our catalog. As you can imagine, you know, we had 4 of them. We're combining, we're working that. We're nearly to the end of that. We've got some final touches on that. Again, that's folks from across all the state coming together and putting that into one document. We had separate documents in the past. We had a separate handbook and a catalog, and now it's going into one document. We've worked through our strategic plan. All of our SOSs and COPs are being reviewed and revised. April 1st is a big timeline for us. That's when we have to submit the prospectus to SAC COC. They will take that will be distributed to their board. Their board will meet in June, and we anticipate and expect that they will approve that. And then from that time, we have 30 days, as you've heard that time, to look and be one college by their standards. And so that's why we're doing all this pre-work, so that, because obviously we couldn't get all that work done within 30 days that we're doing right now. So we'll have to look and feel as one college. Rick Herrera and his team, our website has to be the same. So that is another big undertaking. And then we'll have our report in the fall, and then again, SACS will come, as Elton mentioned, the very last week in January 2016 to conduct their on-site visit to make sure that we are in compliance with their standards and meet their expectations that they've set out for accreditation purposes. You know, I just can't explain how proud I am of the folks that are working on this project. Christy Gilbo is the project manager. She has done an outstanding job. But all of the VCs and all of the folks that they've been working with, their teams, the spirit of cooperation has been just tremendous across the state. And the employees, I mean, this is hard work. It's hard work because everybody thinks that they have their own little piece and they think that their way is the best way. But coming together and finding that cooperative spirit, it's really put us in a good place. So I just really want to commend all of the employees and folks for working so hard to push this through. So we're still at it. We have a long way to go, but we can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Congratulations. I mean, this is a huge undertaking, and for such a small amount of time to have this far, it's really impressive. You guys did a great job.
Thank you. The team has done an outstanding job. It's the team. The team has done an outstanding job. Thank y'all.
Okay, thank you, Penny and Gail and Elton. Next committee, Committee for Human and Organizational Development, Joe Hearn.
Chairman, the Committee for Human and Organizational Development met this morning. Ivan was not present. He was in another committee meeting, and Linda was absent. But
By
Gil-
yourself? Sorry.
I get even. Gary Hendricks attended, along with Gail Lawrence, and the enterprise safety person, Tom Hooker, and the HR rep, Hannah Love, was present. Both presented this morning, safety and HR, and basically gave me the state of the union for both of those organizations in light of what we're doing with SAC. So a lot of things are in flux, and but things are coming together, as Gail said earlier. And what I requested from them is that at the next board meeting, they present whatever metrics they have created or are using to run the organizations, but present it to the board. It's one thing to present it to me, and I will go deep and catch the pass, but I think it's important that the rest of the board understand where we are across the enterprise with respect to HR and safety, because I think those two organizations are very important, and we need to understand what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. We have one report, and Ms. Jonathan will give that to us.
Yes, sir. This is the quarterly report on FTE full-time equivalents. We have the E&G, or appropriated cap. The state limits how much appropriated funds we can use to fund full-time employees. We can report in this quarter that we were under the cap across the board.
Mr. Chairman, that has been our report, and that's all we have.
Thank you, Joe. Next committee will be Committee for Facilities, John Hatchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met this morning. I'm pleased to say that we have no minute orders at this meeting, but hang on to the next meeting. I'm going to ask our team member, Ray Fried, to give a brief report on the status of the projects.
Good morning. We do have the major projects list to present to you, and again, this list is comprised of projects that the board has taken action on, either approving the concept or the project itself. So I'll not go through every project, but I will go through the ones that have shown some change or actually have a couple heads up to talk about. If you're using an electronic device, I've started making the changes in blue as we update this report, so you'll see those numbers in blue, and I'll continue to do that. It helps me remember what has changed also. Project number 1, on page 2 of 4, the Harlingen campus. The first project is a renovation of Building 20 SS. There is going to be a slight change in the delivery method on that project. We went out for proposals on a CM at risk contractor, and the results were not favorable for us. So we're going to go ahead and proceed with the design on that and get 100% construction documents and change the delivery method to the competitive seal proposal. That will not require board approval. The schedule and the funding will stay the same. Project number 3, the repair and renovation of Building 200D. The only thing that's changed there is the amount of progress that's been made. Project number 4 was the design for the chiller plant. That project is in process and 7% complete. The percentage is increased. This is another one that the funding source may change on it from designated tuition to HEAF funds. Just a heads up, and we'll keep you updated. If that change does occur, we'll be on your next report. And then that is the design for project number 5, which is a very important project and will be funded out of HEAF funds. Those projects are all in budget and on schedule. Yes, sir.
On that number 5, $8 million. I'm not sure I understand where is this construction going to happen? Where's this project? Is it at this campus or what?
No, it's in Harlingen. It's the chiller plant.
Okay.
And
that's an antiquated plant right there.
Yes, it is. It's in need of attention.
Wait, are we removing the old system completely and coming in with a
It'll be a brand-new facility,
brand new
yes, sir.
system? Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? On page 3 of 4, you'll find the Waco project list. Project number 1 is the Conley Building. If you recall, phase 1 is completed, and we waited on phase 2 because it has to be performed during the summer. And so your next action will be the approval of the guaranteed maximum price this spring. Project number 2 is the runway project, and that's on schedule and in budget. The final contract or final phase has been awarded. Project number 3, it's on schedule and in budget. The project will be complete in spring of 2015 as shown, but the actual turnover of that building may delay a little bit because of the Thunderbirds Air Show on June the 6th and the 7th, and I believe they're using that facility for the show. So the acceptance should stay on schedule, but the actual turnover of the building may be later. Project number 4, again, a very important project, is the water infrastructure on the Waco campus, and it is a HEAF project. Project number 5 This is actually the minute order that expanded the Fort Bend campus. So it's a combination of the donated land, which would be your next action, the acceptance of the land and the approval of a lease. The building itself is Building 1 in Fort Bend, and that would be a TSTC foundation project. Project number 6 is Building number 2 on the Fort Bend campus, and that's a TRB project. Back on Building 5, where you see the equipment in blue, equipment of the TPFA, $5 million. That is the transition funding that the chancellor spoke of. And of course, that's contingent on the award of that. But we wanted to get that equipment funding someplace captured on a list so we knew what we had to spend on that project. Are there questions on the Waco project list? Moving on to page 4 of 4. This is the West Texas and Marshall projects, both of them TRB projects. The same thing, you'll see numbers in blue there where we've added the equipment that we've requested in the transition funding. That concludes the report if there are no other questions. Thank you.
Anything else?
Okay, thank you, John. At this time, lunch is here.
Could I follow up on
Sure,
a comment
go ahead.
he made? Kevin, stand up. This is Kevin Dorton. Kevin is located on the Waco campus and wears many hats. He and the aviation folks here at TSTC Waco, and perhaps others that I may not be advised of, have done an outstanding job of landing the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds for the Waco Air Show, for our air show in June. The common attendance at an air show that includes the Thunderbirds is 50,000 people, which rivals a Baylor game day for the Waco economy, because their stadium only holds 45,000. And so that is a big, big deal for TSTC, and moves our air show from a quaint regional air show to a really big deal. So I wanted to make sure that y'all knew that we have teammates like Kevin and his team. I know he would give a lot of credit to a lot of other people who are thinking big and working hard to make TSTC, to bring TSTC's brand up to the level that all of us agree that it should. And so I wanted to give him that kudos, and I hope you'll appreciate Kevin with me. Thank you, Kevin.
Not only will my kids thank you for that, because they'll be very happy to know that's happening, but it's a great chance to show off the brand to all these people.
Oh,
Yeah.
I might offer, we'll have a VIP tent, and I think y'all will qualify for that if you'd like to come to the show.
Okay, at this time, lunch will be served. We're going to take a break, and we're going to reconvene at 12:15, and we will begin with Committee for Fiscal Affairs at that time. Okay, let's go to the Committee for Fiscal Affairs. J.V. Martin.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
May I do something really quick before we do it? I promise it won't take long. I want to introduce you all to April Walker. April, come on over. You know, other schools have interscholastic athletics, you know, football teams, baseball teams, stuff like that. And for some schools, so I mean, consider Baylor lately and all the regard that that has brought to them. What TSTC does is Skills USA. And the reason is our kids compete in technologies that are appropriate to the career field they're trying to go to. And when I tell you about Skills USA and winners, and the fact that we garner more medals than the rest of the two-year schools put together, that is a giant deal. That's like going to the Final Four. That's like going to the national championship. April Walker holds 5 medals. 5 medals and 1 national medal. And here's what that means. April Walker is a national champion.
Good.
So I thought you'd like to meet one.
Yeah.
Meet the board.
J.V.?
Chairman, the Fiscal Affairs Committee met region in Garza. And I met with Jonathan, and Stella Garcia was there, and several staff members, probably better known as Jonathan's bodyguards, but they were there. We had 6-minute orders and 3 reports, so we've got a pretty full agenda. We'll start off, and Jonathan, take over.
Thank you, Regent Martin. The first minute order is 0215C. It's the minute order on signature authorizations. Usually, in the past, this one used to come up every, so often. With all of our changes, we're kind of seeing this almost every quarter. The current signature authorization revisions have to do with the changes in our functional structure, some retirees, new assignments for folks. And so we need to update this so that the banks know who's properly signing our stuff. So we ask your approval of our signature authority schedule therein. On the next minute order, 0315C, is the fall 2015 semester schedule of emoluments. This is a report we submit to the board at least annually. Our system operating standard on wage and salary administration requires that the Board of Regents approves the specific amounts or specific values for each emolument. And so we've made a few changes in here, and we've done a little bit in terms of trying to simplify and condense the report for clarity's sake. You'll see that on the attached schedule, we have several different line items there. We have a couple of emoluments that are related to student housing administration. We've got housing allowances, car allowance, and business expense allowances that typically fall into the executive compensation package or overall compensation. And then within food service operations, we provide some emoluments as part of their duties there in the kitchen. And then the communication stipend, that's like a phone expense. And we've raised that specific stipend. Something that's occurred on here is we've really tried to make this consistent statewide. We used to have, different rates for different locations, and so we've made that consistent across the board. We did provide some details on just the number of emoluments. We've got 148 different emoluments that are awarded. A lot of those are telecom emoluments. There's 120 of those are the telecom emoluments. And the expense related to this on an annual basis is about $250,000 a year. So, moving on to yes, sir.
I'd like to make a comment about this. The communication stipend could get really expensive, so we get kind of stingy on that, and it's usually driven not necessarily by rank. It's driven instead more often by function. And you have to consider, for example, having 11 locations, you automatically have at least 11 people that are going to be on call. They're the overall boss that's going to be on call. And then you have if a pipe breaks person, 11 times over. And then you have the safety 11 times over. And so people who are on call for the various campuses are the ones who first get this emolument. And so you can imagine that starts to add up. If 100-something people sounded like a lot, it's not when you consider that we have 11 locations to cover. And that's how we tend to hand that out.
The next minute order, order 0415C, is the subject is lease of hangar space at 311 Airline Boulevard. That's actually the hangar just over here, our neighboring facility. This is more than just your typical lease. This is actually an arrangement where we have exchanged space in a specific hangar that we provided that to an owner of a couple of aircraft, and for the exchange in value, they're offering 4 hours of time on one of their aircraft, which accrues, if any is unused, it accrues and accumulates from month to month. We had some questions about the terminology in the minute order about dry lease, or and so for some clarity's sake, that is that means that arrangement provides for use of the aircraft only. We pay for the fuel costs upon usage of it, and we pay for the pilot costs as well. The fuel costs, estimated fuel costs on the 4 hours that are included in that arrangement, is about, depending on the fuel prices, December fuel prices, it was about $1,280 for 4 hours of use. And the pilot fee is $500 per day, but it's been waived by the pilot that flies us around. We have a relationship with this particular pilot. Our initial use indicates that we will use this at capacity most often. When we do so, we actually save about $1,400 to $1,800. That's what we've done on the last 3 trips. Statewide, the statewide operations that we are moving towards really requires a higher level of travel, and so this is a way for us to kind of rein in some of those costs and really make more productive use of our time rather than be behind. It speeds up our travel time. So. The general counsel has offered a letter. He's reviewed he's reviewed this specifically, and has no findings. Minute order 0515C relates to our schedule of student and family housing rental rates, room and board rates, service charges, and deposits for the fall 15 semester. We have some facilities that we charge a room rate, some facilities where we charge room and board together, specifically in the Sweetwater location. This specific minute order requests revisions to the rates at Harlingen and Sweetwater, asking for a rate increase. At both locations, they would like to do some modifications, enhancements of the properties, and this will allow to recover some of those costs in the rate increase. And specifically in Harlingen, we have 2 different rate structures that we're proposing. One is a minimum of $150 per unit, and that will allow us to move forward with the project of providing internet services, which has really become the expectation for those students. And it equates to about $50 a month, which is, you could say, that's kind of the rate of internet services these days. And then $350 for a renovated unit. And so we do hope to actually have a renovation project that will renovate those units, and we will apply those higher rates as those units are renovated. West Texas, again, they want to do some needed enhancements, and this would allow for that. We've had both are achieving occupancy rates last fall at about the 75% rate. Harlingen's occupancy rate stays very high. They have a very captive audience, and so even when we see enrollments drop, they stay pretty consistent, and we do anticipate that this will actually enhance our occupancy more so than cause it to decline. And then there's some other revisions within this schedule. We're applying, we've had application fees at 1 or 2 colleges, and this is creating an application fee across the board. That covers our costs of background checks and such. And there's some other minor changes. Be glad to answer any questions. Okay. On the next minute order, 0615C, is the schedule of tuition and fees effective the fall 15 semester. There are a number of changes within this. I've outlined them within these bullets, and we did provide a document that sort of described the rationale for our approach to pricing. We're moving towards a market-driven cost structure. Historically, pricing was very much dictated by costs, and still we will still incorporate costs into our evaluation. But Really, we're trying to respond to demand and align our approach with our enrollment strategies and looking at the pipeline associated with bringing students in, getting them through, and getting them on their way. The overall proposed increase to tuition is approximately 6%. We've seen research where our students will not have a visceral reaction to anything less than about a 7% rate. And so that means our lowest rate of tuition won't climb by more than 6%. And that's the same for two categories of tuition. And then there's a shift in the way we're doing pricing for dual credit across the state. We've historically had varying approaches to pricing our dual credit offerings. This proposal waives tuition consistently across the state so that there would be no tuition charged, but there would be a $50 annual fee across statewide for tuition for dual credit that was offered across the state. Dr. Stuckley referred to our new approach for doing dual credit. We're not doing onesie twosie type programs anymore. We're doing our programs our dual credit offerings have been reprogrammed to be in what are called CTE pathways, and so these would allow students to participate in the CTE pathway for that year and would provide tuition or provide access to 12 courses during the course of a year. So, okay.
As you know, one of the things you've seen us do is develop various product lines or delivery channels that allow us to reach more students, and dual credit is one of those. We're going to keep a real close eye on this. And the reason is waiving tuition means that one of the revenue streams that we typically get on college, which is state appropriations and tuition, one of those has now been severely reduced. Now, the reason we would want to do that product line is because there's other benefits that come to us. So we're going to, if this new strategy produces the kind of students who, for example, go straight into the workplace and generate a really good benefit on the funding formula side, then it'll perfectly justify this approach. Likewise, if we find that a large number of students articulate out of these dual credit situations and straight into TSTC, it's essentially then a loss leader marketing, maybe not a loss leader, but at least a reduced revenue leader kind of channel that produces a higher enrollment number. What we're not going to do is get in the business of giving away technical ed training across the state just to get the enrollment numbers. And there are many colleges in Texas who play the dual credit product line just to get the enrollment numbers. And so that's really kind of a fool's game. And so we can't tell you that this approach is going to be perfect, but here's what we can tell you. We're going to watch it really closely. We're going to tweak it as we need to, and we're going to make sure it has maximum impact on the student and the right kind of impact on the institution. So just wanted you to know there's real method to this whole thing in terms of what we're doing in dual credit. The good news is no one's been watching dual credit more than they have right now because of HB 5. And we have some opportunities. I mean, we have districts calling us from all over. And Elton's team has developed a great response here. And now Jonathan's team is working on the pricing side. And we might tweak it. We might find we have to tweak it a little up and down. And you know that pricing and demand are linked together. And so we'll see how those work. And we're going to take a really measured approach to it and not just throw it out there. So I hope you're rest assured at that.
Also contained in that schedule are a couple of new fees. A couple of these we'd be just fine if we never gained a dollar out of. They're really intended to motivate new behaviors. We've got a late registration fee that really is aimed to have students register early. We know from our studies that students that register within that last window of time are less likely to navigate successfully through our programs. And so that's really to motivate those kind of behaviors. Late graduation fees is a similar application of that. Application fee, I believe we passed out a revised schedule. Are we working on it? I made one revision to this, and if you're looking at your iPad, it should be up to date, but one revision to the schedule, and it's related to the line item called application fee. We previously had $50 per application, and we've revised that to say up to $100 per application. And the thought was we'd like to create some flexibility for some eased adoption of this, so we don't have too big of an impact if we start to implement. And then some flexibility so that as we move along, we don't have to come and make revisions at this table every time we come back and evaluate that. So it gave us a little room to, vet this out, study this, and implement it in a cautious way.
And likewise on this one, the chances of us charging $100 for an application are nearly nil. But what we may do is start with a modest application fee to see if we can do the sort of seek the benefit that I wrote you all about, but not deter students from applying. And so we've changed it to up to, with the understanding that we're going to flexibly apply this starting really, really low and then see through some progressive work on it if there's a sweet spot that we can hit.
The initial objective was to refine some of the applications to provide a bit of a filtering effect so that we have a viable application pool for our recruiters to really work with to ensure a higher rate of conversion. But we just want to do that.
But the last thing we want to do is discourage a viable student from applying. So there is a sweet spot that we're aiming for. We just don't know what it is.
There's a few things that have been consolidated, things like fines, traffic fines. We're doing that one way statewide, and that's with this new proposal, we will do it one way statewide. The next minute order is 0715C. It's our schedule of tuition and fee exemptions and waivers for non-mandatory effective fall 2015 semester. There's been one revision on this particular schedule, and it has to do with the waiver associated with dual credit programs. This supports what we're doing on the other side with that CTE fee. So that concludes the minute orders. There's a number of reports in the book. The first is the comparison of budget to expenditures and encumbrances. This is for the first quarter. And so if you look at the schedule, that's September 2014 through December 2014, it demonstrates that our first quarter is on track with our planned budget. We're with 68% of our budget remaining. I will say that in the following quarters, we have had an across-the-board increase in our payroll, and we've had some restructuring-related expenses, and so we're watching these things very closely. And this level of budget remaining is something that we'd like to continue to see, but we're watching it very closely. We're building revenue forecasting capabilities, and we'll be monitoring these costs that associated with consolidation and such. I just wanted to indicate that we're watching the trends really close. On that note, with our new statewide emphasis, we are building some new controls with respect to budgeting, with respect to authorization of new positions and pay increases, and we're seeing some real positive effects of that, and looking forward to realizing the benefits of that down the road. The next report is our report on investments. On the last page, it shows our weighted average rate of interest is nearly 0.6%, pretty in line with the benchmark 3-year Treasury bond yield, which is really our bogey for that, and with a weighted average maturity of 387 days. The last report is the pledged collateral report, and it describes our collateral position on November 30th, 2014, and at that date we were sufficiently collateralized with all of our deposits there. That concludes my report.
Mr. Chairman, that completes the Fiscal Affairs Committee's report.
Okay, thank you, JB. At this time, we will reconvene the Committee of the Whole, and it is 12:35 p.m. I have no comments. Mr. Chancellor, you want to present Minute Order 0815C?
I will. A component of SAC COC accreditation is to have an expanded statement of institutional purpose. It is one that's designed to go well beyond just the rather concise mission statement, and should try to capture most of the scope of your intended operations and the rationale for why you do it. And so with single accreditation coming for the first time in our history, we're going to do an expanded statement of purpose that is statewide. This applies to all 11 locations. And so this has been developed in a collegial fashion among leaders from all across the state, and contains many of the components that were in the individual sections, but now is germane to everybody. And in order to be valid, this statement has to be reviewed and approved by you. One of the things that I really like about this statement is, for the first time in my recollection, not only have we dryly described kind of our operating intent or rationale, but we've also infused our values in here, meaning, and so you're going to find words like integrity and leadership and innovation. And those are descriptors that we've held up as values for our system for many years. But I really like that the team ended up infusing those into our statement of purpose too, so that this foundational statement contains those values. So I offer it for your approval, or consideration, and hopeful approval.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Mike. Under reports, we have the minutes of the Executive Committee meeting of January 5th, and I believe they were all given electronically to everyone. At this time, we will adjourn the Committee of the Whole, and it is 12:40 p.m. Okay. Yeah, you ready to go on into the, okay. Let's go on into the Board of Regents meeting. I'll ask Jonathan to give the invocation.
Let us pray. God, thank you so much for what we have here today. Thank you for this institution, what it means for our state. Lord, we just pray your favor on us as we march forward. And Lord, I just pray for wisdom for this group, this body. Lord, I just pray that we will serve our students well, serve our industries well, serve our citizens well. And Lord, we are so grateful for all you've given us, for every good and perfect gift comes from you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
The meeting of the Texas State Technical College Board of Regents is called to order this Thursday, February 12, 2015, at 12:42 p.m. At this time, we will determine a quorum, beginning with Penny.
Penny Forrest, present.
Joe Hearn present.
John Hatchell, present.
Keith Honey, present.
Ivan Andarsa, present.
J.V. Martin, present.
Joe Gurecki, present.
Ella Skinner, present. We have a quorum. And I would like to recognize any guests that we might have.
We will have some that will be introduced through Stella's presentation.
Okay, very good. Ms. Chancellor, you have any comments?
No, sir, I do not.
Thank you.
I yield to Stella.
Good afternoon. Is this going to project or it's just picking up? I'm not sure. Before I get started and give you the Harlingen update, I want to recognize the Student Government Association and leadership councils from the other TSTC campuses. So since I don't know everybody's name, I'm going to ask y'all to stand up and introduce yourselves.
And I'm April Walker. I'm Vice Chair of the Student Leadership Council here in Waco.
And I believe there's advisors here also from the other campuses. Yeah.
I'm Michelle Rachels here at the Waco campus. I'm the Director of Student Leadership.
Thank y'all.
We know that a lot of our graduates end up leaders in the companies that they go to. So SGA is a vital part of what we do to teach leadership skills to our students. It's an opt-in sort of thing. And so these students have self-identified as those who want to improve their skills in what it means to be in a work team and in a leadership organization, to set goals and then strive through groups to realize them. And so these are special students for us who have high aspirations in their life and know how to work toward them. And so they're very special people, and Stella's going to introduce you to some more from Harlingen that I think you'll be really impressed with.
I agree, Chancellor. Before I introduce the three students, I also want to make sure I introduce Adele. Adele Clinton is the Director of Student Life at Harlingen and is responsible in large part for getting the students here and preparing them today and all year long. Typically for the February Board of Regents meeting, Harlingen has always shown a video. And this year, while we have a video, I chose to bring three students with me instead. Two of the students I heard in December at our Noche de Gala, and that is our scholarship fundraiser for the Lozano Long Foundation, because two of the three students here are Lozano Long scholarship recipients, and that has made it possible for them to continue their education. So before I turn it over to them and their great presentations that you're gonna hear, I want to just give you briefly, and Mary, you can time me in 1 minute, just four items. Chairman, you would appreciate my meetings because I time people and I keep us moving. So first item is a new program that was started in Harlingen in November, and that was a truck driving program. And that's student on credit, that's continuing ed, and that's primarily to respond to business, the oil and gas industry, and getting more of our unemployed workers in the valley, giving them a skill. So we did start a truck driving program in Harlingen in November. Our enrollment is pretty flat, but we did see and continue to see a 16% increase in the engineering division, which is our mechatronics, our wind energy technology, our drafting, our telecommunication, chemical environmental technology, and I forgot one of them. But our engineering division. And we are right now experiencing a really good relationship with Duke Energy and Cook Electric because there's an expansion of the wind industry in the valley. And because of that exposure, more students are seeing it and they want to come in and get in that program. And we were also fortunate to get a nacelle donation. And I was going to call you Dr. Freed. Mr. Freed from West Texas connected us with this particular employer who was looking to dispose of used nacelle. And our students love it. They want to go in there and use it as their lab in the wind energy technology program. So we've been fortunate to be able to add that to our list of inventory for our students in the lab. We had a SAC COC accreditation visit in October, and Chairman Skinner and the Chancellor visited with the committee. And we were very fortunate. We had a great experience. We had students help us. The employers were great. And we had the best outcome that we could get. And we had no recommendations from the committee, meaning we've satisfied all of our accreditation, which puts us in a great position for the single accreditation move. So I know Kyle and I were sweating bullets because we said we can't be the ones that hold up the single accreditation because our individual colleges were going through it. So we have successfully gone through the accreditation. And finally, the Chancellor earlier presented on the graduation or the completion of our college since 2009. And I'm pleased to say that the number of degrees conferred by Harlingen from 2009, 513 were certificate, associate degrees, and academic core completion, which the coordinating board doesn't recognize the academic core, but we do count it as an institutional award. So 513 in 2009 to 966 last year. So I'll let you do the math, but lots of good advising and instruction going on to get students completed, which leads me into my segue because there's also a lot of student engagement activities. And we know engagement leads to retention, and retention leads to completion, and completion leads to the workforce. And so I have 3 students here today that are going to share what goes on at TSTC Harlingen as well as their own lives on the campus. So first, I'd like to introduce our Student Government Association President, Andrew Martinez, if you want to come up, Andrew. And Andrew's been sitting at the table with us at the President's Council since last summer, I believe, when he was, and I'm just so impressed with Andrew. And you're going to hear his story and you'll be just as impressed. But while the first time I met him, I thought he's so quiet and shy. But he asks all the right questions, he listens, and he carries that message back to his peers. And they have a great president, they have great activities that and Andrew's involved in all of that. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrew and let him share his story.
I would like to thank the TSTC administration for inviting me here and extending the opportunity to share my story. Every morning, I wake up at 5:30 to begin my day. I get ready, eat breakfast, grab my backpack, and make my way to the bus station. After my hour-long bus ride to TSTC, I rush to class. I work hard and try my best to maintain a high grade point average, a spot on the President's Honor Roll, and my membership to the Phi Alpha Kappa Honor Society. In between classes, I spend my time representing the student body and tending to students' concerns in the Student Government Office. As the SGA president, I spend countless of hours volunteering my time in community service projects, collaborating with my fellow students to program student events, and attending meetings on campuses. 13 long hours after I wake up, I'm on the bus again, making my way home. Once I get home, I spend my evening doing homework and catching up on my studying. Finally, I go to bed and prepare to start again the next day. If you would have told me a year ago that this is what my day would look like, I would have called you crazy. You see, I've always wanted to be a leader, but in high school, it never panned out. The opportunity never presented itself. I looked around and asked for positions and different leadership roles, but just couldn't seem to find a direction. When I was 16, I took an interest in airplanes. My mom and I searched around a place that offered studies in the field, and at only 16, I got my first glimpse of flying an aircraft. I was so thrilled by the experience that I registered for my first ever aviation-related course at TSTC, Aviation Science. At TSTC, I decided if I wanted to be a leader, I was going to have to take control of my own course and make it happen. I searched for the perfect opportunity and I found it. I've always loved to serve others and volunteer. So when I saw a poster on campus promoting TSTC Service Squad, I knew it was for me. I volunteered at every event I could make it to. And then I got a call. National Make a Difference Day was coming up, and the director of student life asked me to lead a group of student volunteers at one of the designated service locations, cleaning up a community garden TSTC students built. I immediately said yes. The day of the service project, I started to question myself. Could I really do this? Will I have the relationship building skills that one needs for this role? I was finally being offered the leadership role, so I badly wanted it, and I was nervous. After giving a pre-service speech and conducting a brief icebreaker with my team, I knew everything was going to be great. National Make a Difference Day turned out amazingly and will always have had the takeoff part of my journey. It motivated me to be part of the SGA, to do my best as I could in my classes, and to do everything I could do to leave a legacy of purpose. Currently, I have over 60 hours of flying and will soon receive my pilot's license from Gulf Aviation from Harlingen, Texas. And when I graduate from TSTC, I plan to continue my education and become an aerospace engineer. When I'm not on the plane and I'm not communicating on the radios or switching gears, flying gives me that sense of freedom. It's the best feeling in the world. I don't have to worry about missing the bus or feeling the pressure that every college student faces on a day-to-day basis. I can let my guard down and do what I love. So, by pursuing my education at TSTC, I, like so many students like me, am given that sense of freedom to do what I absolutely love. TSTC provided me the runway that I needed to fly my own course in my life. I don't know where I will be landing next, but I do know that now I am confident, ready, and determined pilot of my life. Thank you, TSTC.
You know, what was interesting was when I saw them walk in today for lunch, Andrew's taking pictures of this building. You can imagine based on his background. And Adele says, Andrew, don't geek out yet. We don't have time. You can geek out after the meeting. So yeah, he wanted to take pictures all over the place. If you have questions, they'll be available after each of them speaks to ask questions or any comments. Our next student is Maria Rodriguez. And I got to meet Maria when I visited the Veterans Center in the fall. And the one thing she's probably not going to share that I will share is that when I was addressing the students at the Veterans Center, she asked, I remember her raising the hand, she may not remember, and she says, do you have an open door policy? And I said, yes, I do. I said, you're welcome to come up anytime. And if I'm not there, they'll schedule you a meeting. So she right away, you know, she's been to my office a couple of times since then, all good stuff. But please help me welcome Maria Rodriguez.
My life can be defined very clearly in two ways, before TSTC and after TSTC. I am a 41-year-old mother of 4. My oldest is 18 years old, and my youngest is 9. I grew up in Matamoros, Mexico, born to a family that didn't believe a daughter should be educated. My father wanted his daughters to get married and stay home to raise their children, but I wanted more. When I was 16 years old, a relative offered me an opportunity to come to the United States and study. I jumped at a chance. I left my family. I work at a taco stand at the flea market on the weekends. I made $10 on Saturdays and $15 on Sundays. I would sell candy apples house to house to make enough money to buy my clothes and school supplies. I was a dedicated student and graduated high school with a 3.5 grade point average, despite my broken English. After graduation, I joined the United States Army with the hopes of getting the money that I needed to go to college. But I took a slight detour, and it has taken me 20 long years to finally come to college. You see, I got married, and I married someone just like my father, someone who didn't believe that I should go to college, someone who didn't believe that I can succeed at college. For 20 years, I was stuck at home I was depressed and bitter of being deprived of an education. Year after year, I longed for a chance to go to school. When we were struggling financially, when the electricity was cut off for non-payment, when we didn't have any money for groceries, I would cry and think, if only I had an education, we wouldn't be suffering as much. Whenever I brought up the subject going back to school, my husband's favorite phrase was, "What about the kids?" And I'll tell him, I'll be doing it for the kids. One day, we have to buy my son a college t-shirt for his elementary school. It was an opportunity for us to discuss his future and the importance of him going to college to get an education. The opportunity he had of living a better life than the one that we can provide for him. He listened intently. Then he looked at me and asked me a question that would change my life forever. He said, "Then why don't you go to college, Mom?" 3 days later, I was at TSTC signing up for classes. The inevitable happened, my marriage ended, but my life began. Beginning school was a major change for my family and me. I can remember the nervousness I felt coming to TSTC, wondering, can I do it? It wasn't long before I found the Veteran Center, where they gave me the unconditional support and told me, you can do it. Today, in my 4th semester at TSTC, I am proud to tell you that I have a 3.9 grade point average. I got an 89.4 in Comp 1. That ruined my 4.0. It took me a while to get over that one. It has been a struggle. There have been times whether I have to decide to put gas in my car to make it to class or put food on the table for my children. Despite my financial struggles and academic worries, I have learned something about myself, something that I learned in the Army, that I will not give up. I am proud to tell you that I have been tested and accepted to Texas A&M in Kingsville and the bilingual education program. My life before TSTC was a mess. My life now that I am at TSTC is better. I am prepared. I have the tools that I need to sort out the mess. I have learned so much. In class, I have learned the importance of providing a good environment for the children to learn. We do not know where they came from, we don't know their background, and we need to be there for them. TSTC has taught me in life that you have to fight. And the first person that I have to fight was myself. I was scared to come to college. And I have to fight my husband because he didn't want me to attend college. I had to tell him, you know what? I'm going to college. I face my fears. Because my will is way, way bigger than my fears. I am happy. I am confident. I know what I want. And I'm fearless. I want to personally thank each and every one of you for the opportunities that you have afforded me and others like me. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Our next student, Anglais. Anglais is, well, I guess we're waiting on. Yeah, it's hard. That's a hard act to follow. I've heard her story. I won't go on with, yeah. So Anglais is how you would pronounce this next student's name, Anglais Jimenez. She also has been part of the Student Government Association, has been active and she'll say she's spread her wings at TSTC, very shy student in high school, found an opportunity just like Andrew, just like Maria. So help me welcome Angle Jimenez.
Leadership is irrelevant to me. I mean, how far could it possibly take me? At least, that's what I thought about 2 years ago. When I first started school at TSTC, I was very unsure about what I wanted to do other than go to class and go home. Education has always been important to me. I was so ready to learn what I needed to learn and move on. I come from a line of engineers. My grandfather was a civil engineer and constructed most of the bridges and dams in Mexico and here in the lower Rio Grande Valley. Well, not here, but in the valley. Like many parents, my grandfather wanted my father to become a doctor. So my father studied hard and he became a doctor. It wasn't long before he realized that it was not for him. So he hit the books again and he became a petroleum engineer. When I first started high school, my counselor, she asked me, "You have to pick a pathway." So I read the list and I saw math, teaching, the medical field, which I hate, welding, and many other things. So I decided to do welding. I enjoyed welding and I became certified in high school. However, I felt like something was missing. I decided to try the architectural program. I absolutely loved everything about the architectural program. After high school, I enrolled in the Architectural Design and Engineering Graphics Technology program at TSTC. One day, after class, my good friend Fernanda invited me to an SGA meeting. First of all, I had no idea what SGA was. The only reason I had agreed to go was because she had mentioned free food. I mean, as a college student, who's gonna miss out free food? So I couldn't say no. At that meeting, I saw another side of college. Students like me were talking about campus life, talking about their clubs, and I heard someone say that they had to entertain emotion to do something. I had no idea what entertain emotion was. That day I left with something more than just free food. I left with a newfound sense of curiosity for the other side of college. I decided that I needed to do something about my lack of involvement. I heard about a leadership series on campus, and I began to attend the workshops. Before I knew it, I was a silver level TSTC certified leader. I thought this leadership stuff came easy and naturally to me. So, with SGA elections around the corner, I picked up an application and I ran for SGA vice president. But I lost. Some people would give up and move on, but not me. So I reached out to my Architectural Design and Engineering Graphics Technology program chair, and I asked him if we had a club. And we didn't. So after what seemed like a never-ending paperwork and lots of dedication, I reactivated the club and I put it in good standing. The club held elections and they voted me president. I was a female in the non-traditional program, so it meant a lot to me. While president of the ADEC club, I was able to keep the members involved, and I also informed them about the campus activities. We were even one of the top 3 clubs in every semester. Running the meetings and planning the club events helped me develop my confidence and better public speaking abilities. Then, I saw another call for SGA officers again. So I thought to myself, should I do it? However, I was still hungry for this role that I had yet to experience. So I picked up an application again, I turned it in again, and I had to wait anxiously again. And this time, I was given the opportunity to serve SGA vice president. I was so excited. TSTC has taught me that I should never settle. It taught me that I should always set my sights higher. Now that I have my Associates of Science in the Architectural Design and Engineering Graphics program, I want more. My goal is to become a petroleum engineer. There are only 25 schools in the country that offer this degree. Luckily, Texas houses 7 of those. I have applied to Texas A&M, so wish me luck. TSTC has taught me that figuring out that your purpose is not easy. It prepared me for what is yet to come. I am ready and I am proud to continue my grandfather's and father's footsteps. So yes, I will be entering a workforce where I, as a female, will be underrepresented, but I am not intimidated. I have learned to take my lead in my own life because I can go as far as I want to in life. Thank you.
You know, if you've been to our cafeteria or dining room in Harlingen recently, it's been remodeled. We've removed the ceiling and added some of the reclaimed wood. But that was a project we did with the Student Government Association because of the monies we used to renovate the campus. So Andre and Angle would sit in those meetings and tell us what they expected to see in that cafeteria. And because of her background in architectural designing, engineering, graphics, she had all sorts of great ideas. Lots that cost money, but they were great ideas. So right now, if there's any questions or comments, the students are happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Is there any doubt in your mind why we do what we do? Thank you, Stella. That was outstanding. I don't think anyone was keeping track.
Thank all of you who participated.
That was good.
Adoption of the agenda. At this time, is there a motion to adopt the agenda? John Hatchell,
Second.
second by Penny Forrest. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the November 6, 2014
So moved.
meeting? J.V. Martin, second by Penny Forrest. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the Executive Committee of January 5th, 2015? Joe Gurecki, motion by Joe Gurecki, second by Penny. You are a secondary. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Penny, second. Joe Hearn. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. At this time, is there any unfinished business? Ms. Chancellor, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Is there any new business? No new business. Procedures for public comment at TSTC board meetings are governed by the Texas statute and the bylaws of the Board of Regents of the Texas State Technical College Systems. Section 551.042 of the Texas Open Meetings Act restricts the TSTC Board of Regents from dialogue in response to public comments. Are there any public comments? Having heard none, at this time, the meeting of the TSTC Board of Regents held at TSTC Waco, Texas on Thursday, February 12th, 2015 after proper posting and in accordance with Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code for the specific purpose provided in Sections 551.071, 551.072, and 551.074, will recess from open meeting into closed meeting at 1:10 p.m. And at this time, I will dismiss the public and say to you to take your things with you. Tiger Woods, sit down. Oh, I know that hurts. The closed meeting will adjourn and the board will reconvene into open meeting at 2:40 p.m. There is no action to take. Ms. Chancellor, you have any comments?
I do not. Thank you.
Board comments, Penny, have anything?
No comment.
Joe? John?
No comment.
Keith? Ivan?
Just I look forward to seeing you all in Austin next meeting.
We look forward to being there.
We're going to his house and shoot bats at night.
Shooting bats? Oh, cool.
Long story, but
Nothing.
pretty much.
Joe, do you have any comments?
I don't know, we can talk about the bats.
Is there any further new business? The meeting of the Texas State Technical College Board of Regents is adjourned.